Hey guys, it is Wednesday, March 25th's lesson, and we're going to go over the slope DMR problems from the day before. So you're going to take 2 points, 2 pretty points, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 over 3 as my slope, and my y-intercept is a -1. So my equation is y equals 4/3 x minus 1. This should be very easy. You should be able to work through these with no problem. So here's my y-intercept, which is 3. And I am going to rise 1 and run -1. So my equation is y equals -x plus 3. And then for the third one that you had to do yesterday, your y-intercept is approximately 1. And I don't even know if that's exact, but we're going to take it at that. 1, 2, 3 over 4, 3/4. So y equals 3/4 x plus 1. And if I make a simple mistake, just go with it. You know I do that often. So let's look at today's DMR. So today's DMR, you are choosing the slope and y-intercept for each of these, and then you're finding the equation for each of these. So you can freeze your screen and get the problems for today's DMR. So this is March 25th's DMR. I'm putting that right there for you. All right, and then we are going into lesson 9. I was going to start it early on the last video, but then I changed my mind. We're on S61 because today we're going to talk about a different type of graph. We're going to talk about bivariate categorical data. So I'm seeing 2 words in there. The bi meaning 2, and then the categorical meaning category. And this is just another way we're going to talk is called two-way tables. And in 8th and 9th grade curriculum, they have you set up two-way tables and read two-way tables. And they're very, very, very easy. They're just a bunch of fractions, decimals, and percents in a chart. And that's basically what we're going to be looking at today. So when you look on S61, they give you some information about superhero powers, and they break that down. Like, for instance, 100 students indicated their favorite power was to fly. 49 of them were female. Well, that tells you that 51 of them were male. So you know the opposite piece because you have the total and how many were female. 131 students select power to freeze, 71 are male. So you could figure out how many were female by subtracting. And so each piece kind of gives us some information. So they want us to first start looking at that information. Can we break it down? Do we understand what we're looking at on S61? So if you look at exercises 1 through 4, the first question asks us, how many more females than males indicated their favorite power is telepathy? So telepathy, excuse me. So if I look up here and I find telepathy, so freezing, invisibility, super strength, here's telepathy. That is on the last one. It says, how many more females than males? Well, there's 118 students, 70 were female. So I would subtract 118 minus the 70, and I would get that there were, I need my calculator. Don't know that off the top of my head. 118 indicated telepathy minus the 70, which gives me 48 males. So how many more males than female? I would do 70 minus 48, which is 22 as my answer. So I needed to know it broken down by males and females, like this is females, this is males, so that I could subtract it and figure out the difference. Now, how many more males than females indicated the favorite power was to fly? So then I go to fly and freeze. Okay, fly is the first one. So it says 49 are female, so that meant that 51 are male, and subtract the 49 from that. That tells me 2 more males like to fly. Now, write a survey question that you think might have been used to collect this data. If I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, okay, I know that they definitely want to know male and female. That's definitely something. They would probably want to know if you picked one, and they would list the different superpowers and you had to choose whether that be to fly, to freeze, to be invisible, super strength, or even telepathy. Okay, so you know that those are the answer choices that they're going to be creating so that they can get these two pieces of information. So it says, how do you think 450 surveys using example 1 might have been selected? You can assume that there were 1,000 surveys. When you do any type of survey, the best way to handle it is to randomly select, unless you need data specifically from one source. But I would assume here that this would be random selection. Okay, so how do we set up these two-way tables? They basically look like a chart. And if you notice, here is what an example would be, okay? So we have the choices with the female, and then we have the choices of the strengths. That's why it's called a two-way table, because there are two things that you are answering, and the data is cross-referenced here. So it says this is what we call bivariate categorical data, 2 categories. The first step in analyzing a statistical question posed by the students in the math class is to organize the data in a two-way frequency table. A two-way frequency table that can be used to organize the data is shown below, and the letters would represent the frequency count, how many people met that criteria of both. So to fly and that are female, if I'm correct, would be what, 49, and then male would be 51, and that would equal your 100 votes. So it works basically just like any other table or chart that we set up to get totals. The shaded cells are what we call marginal frequencies, because they're located around the edges of the table. Okay, the non-shaded cells are called joint frequencies because they tell you when the two pieces are joined together, what their total would be. Okay, so the important thing is not necessarily that you remember those terms, but that you remember how to set it up. So now we're going to come up with the data that would fill in this table. So for cell A, we're looking at females that want to fly. So females that want to fly would be 49. So that would be cell A. Okay. I'm trying to split it. Hopefully you can see both. Okay. Data that would be in cell J would be here. So that would be super strength and males. And super strength and males, I'm looking at my data. 25 of them are males. So J would be 25. And I'm double checking to make sure that we're putting the correct numbers where they need to be. What would be in cell, what is that? L? Cell L would be the total of males and all of their choices that they wanted. So you would have to figure out the males that chose fly, freeze, invisibility, super strength, and telepathy, and you would add them up for a total male count. And then cell N is a total of freeze, both boy and girl. So if I go to that list, the ones that won freeze, that would be a total of 131. And then cell R is the total of all of the kids surveyed and all of the males surveyed, which would give me a total of 450, which they told me at the beginning of the problem. So it says cell I is the number of male students who selected invisibility. Using the information, what is the value of cell I? So we want to know males that chose invisibility. So males that chose invisibility were out of 75 students. So 75 minus 48, that would tell me the males because 48 was the females. So 75 minus the 48 is 27 males would fall into the category for answering question number 10. And then cell D is the number of females whose favorite superpower is super strength. Using the information given, what is the value? So you need to know females for super strength. There's only one female. So you can see how it's kind of set up. So the next piece for number 12 is, can you plug in those numbers? So what I would like for you to do is I want you to complete number 12 on your problem set chart. You could take a picture of it. And then I'd also like you to do number 3 only, number 3. So you are doing number 12 on page S64 and number 3. Just to make sure that you can fill in those charts, because tomorrow we're going to start reading them and figuring out percentages. Thanks, guys.